I'm Dwayne Brummett. He's Al.
Welcome back to SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Ali Alberigo and Dwayne Brummett. Hey, sir. We've been following you, watching Shogun.
Yeah. Oh my God. Right. Incredible.
Yeah, just a very, very good show. You said that there were some disappointing things that you didn't, but
Well, the ending, I thought the closure of the last episode, like I don't want to ruin it. So I won't mention what it was. It's just, I thought that it ended, it seemed like it ended unfinished.
okay.
Like they could have done a lot more to explain it and take it through and so on. Like it almost ended as if we have a second season coming, but they don't.
Oh, they don't.
No, it's done. That's the way the book ended. That's the way the series ended, and that's it. So there's not a season two.
Okay. All right. Well, then, yeah, I guess it is. I don't know. I think it's good that series actually know when to stop.
Yeah.
But I don't know that a first season is where they need to stop. But if that's what the original is, then okay.
Right. And now I'm going to go back because I remember as a kid, and I didn't appreciate it nearly as much as I will now. I'm going to watch the original series that's now available on DVD, or I think probably some streaming channels has it too. But yeah, man, I love the show because for me, that's like my cup of tea, like the whole Japanese tradition and the culture. And it's interesting. I've been to Japan so many times, and when I come back and people talk and act like they've been there when they never have, I think that they're missing a lot, like a lot of the nuances, the little things. Like, for example, in my school, just because it's a cultural difference, even though I teach certain respects of how to act, how to bow, how to, respond, how to be with your teacher, people don't understand it because it's very, very different than our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's missing.
The thing I thought was really neat, and I don't understand or know the depth of the culture, but watching it, you could see that there's so much depth, there's so much heritage, there's so many unsaid things in that culture that you almost have to grow up in it in order to understand it thoroughly, if that kind of makes sense. Even just from the way that the women would walk.
Yeah.
They don't walk like the women in the West walk. I mean, it's an art, and everything has a meaning and a purpose, from just the interaction to the food to just everything.
Yeah, that's what I've always been enamored by the Japanese culture. I don't know why, some people don't believe in reincarnation or, qualities that have been passed down in genetics, but I somehow have always, since I'm a kid, been attracted to the Japanese culture. And I don't know why, like I just had a taste for it, like to the point where I just loved it. So like when I went to Japan, I was more interested in, well, of course I was interested in the techniques and the martial arts, but I was also interested in their etiquette, how they acted and what they did. And like, I'll give you an example, quick story. Like one time we were at a restaurant with my teacher, and it was up in the mountains. It was in Nikko Mountains. And it was like this very rustic, like mountain kind of Japanese food restaurant. And there was a waitress. She was a young little girl, probably like 16, 17, if that. And she kept screwing up our order. And Sensei kept giving her another chance and then explaining what she did. And then finally, like after the third time, he went off on her. Like, I mean, like not in a nice way, like in a very harsh but brutal way, but not mean, not yelling, not screaming, but just to the point. And this girl like hysterically cried, sat in front of him and just cried. Like my heart was breaking. Like, and she was bowing and crying and bowing and crying. And then she went off. And I said, "Oh, Sensei, that would have never gone over in the US, in New York, especially." Yeah. And he was confused. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Most of our young generation, if they ever were spoken to that way, they would have told the person yelling at them to go screw off, go to hell." Right. Maybe even quit their job. I'm not taking this crap from anybody. Right. And Sensei said, he goes, no, I had to teach this girl. This is the mentality of a sensei. I had to teach this girl how to act and how to be, so that she doesn't make that mistake again and she can have a good career doing what she's doing. So like he felt obligated to force her to understand what she was doing was wrong and that she had to snap out of it. When I was kind of like, oh, just let it go, leave it alone. But I was amazed at how respectful she was, sat there crying, took it all in, and then left and came back and kept on doing her job and did a better job after she was yelled at, like not yelled at, but talking to.
Right. Yeah. Stern talking.
Yeah. And now I just had an experience. We were just at a restaurant in Florida. We go there every time we stop into our house in Florida, and we had the worst service, like eye rolls from every person who helped us, mistakes on everything that we ordered. I'd had to go back up and say, hey, you didn't give me my potato chips. And they're like, oh, I don't think so. Like, not even, oh, let me check. And then they went online and they saw, oh yeah, you did pay for extra potato chips. Like, so I wrote a letter to the management, to the owner. And my daughter's like, yeah, that's not going to get you nowhere, Dad. I go, no, a good quality letter to the right people could have a big effect. Well, the owner of that restaurant, the wife of the restaurant, emailed me back apologizing and saying thank you and thank you for helping. And she's already went there personally to the restaurant because it's a new management team. And she got rid of the manager that was there because he wasn't doing his job. He was just giving everyone an attitude. He didn't give a crap. So she put a new manager in. She talked to all the staff and she said, next time you come, your meal is on us.
And that's not why you did it, but
no, I did it because I wanted to help the owner, because I wanted to be honest. We loved going to that place. Yeah. Like that's our stop, like you have your first stop. We go to breakfast or whatever time we get in lunch at that place. And we wanted to make sure that, we let them know, because I feel like the employees could ruin it for the owner.
Absolutely.
The owner
it's one thing if the owner, it's one thing if the problem is the owner. And then it's all trickling down. It's a whole nother thing if there's there are team members, on the team that are ruining it for everybody else and the owner. So you identified that and they took action.
And you know what? The great part, again, and I'm sorry, I'm looking away as I talk. I'm looking for our link on YouTube so that I could put it up in our Facebook page, because I just realized that I hadn't done that yet. And it's let me just find it. But anyway, yeah. So for me, I think that let me hit mute. And I think that it was for me to help the owner. Like it wasn't for me to complain so much, but I would have not gone back if I was going to be treated like that again. And that's what you and I, we always talk ahead of time. You say, hey, what do we have a guest, or what's our topic? And then you and I throw some ideas back and forth. And by the way, if that's AI you're using, and however you program it in, or if you wrote it out, whatever it was, the description was amazing. And let me tell the people who are listening that it was funny, because I said to you, yeah, we should talk about, schools and what we go through and all this stuff. And all the crap we have to deal with. And then you turn crap into an acronym, and, and it's perfect, like CRAP and what it means. So we're going to discuss all that stuff right now, that it could become, in my opinion, a business term, that could be used all the time from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as martial arts school owners, we actually have to overcome a bunch of different crap. So yes, in this episode, we are going to kind of break apart the acronym of CRAP, which really represents some key frustrations and obstacles that we encounter in running our martial arts schools. And so just at the very top, obviously C, and C stands for cash flow. And so I did not realize, I don't know about you, but, and you probably with your background had a little different understanding, but I didn't understand cash flow. So I came from, I was an assistant meat manager, and I was asked to become a manager. But even if I would have decided to become a manager of a meat market and, not open up a martial arts school, and that was the reason why I didn't, because I wanted to do this full time, I still don't know that I would have understood cash flow being in that system, because I had a budget to work with. So I would order, what we needed when we needed it, and then I would look at the sales and I would know what's selling and what isn't selling.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my money
Right.
that I was handling.
Right. Yeah.
And so I in that aspect, I didn't understand cash flow. And in fact, when we opened up, I had there was 4 of us, so I had 3 partners, and I didn't do any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was the teaching and the selling.
Right.
And when I bought my partners out, I screwed myself. And I've talked about this in different podcasts that we've had, but I was up to even close to, if not, well, I know I was over $100,000 in credit card debt.
Right.
Because I didn't understand cash flow. And so in our business, actually in any business, but specifically our business, cash flow is one of the most important things that a school owner has to know and understand. Now, you coming from the background that you came from with your lawn care, landscaping business, did you understand cash flow when you got into the martial arts industry, or did you did you have to learn it more in that than you did in landscaping?
It's funny. I didn't treat my martial art school as a business for at least the first year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I fell into the taboo of thinking that martial arts schools were different than businesses. So it's not a business if you're in the martial arts. Typical to the McDojo concept nowadays, that if you have a successful school, you're a sellout. If you make money, you're a sellout. If you have upgrade programs or other things, you're a sellout. It should only be about the martial arts. So the answer to your question is yes, because I had to know the difference between materials cost, labor cost, and then profitability on every single job, especially when I was doing landscaping design. So let's say, for example, I'm redoing someone's yard and we're rototilling, putting in soil, put a sprinkler system, putting in sod, then doing flower gardens with rock beds and shrubbery, and then mulch. All of those items were in my cost list, and I had to analyze those costs. And then I had to tack on my profit on top of that, and then charge that retail with to the client. So I did have a good understanding of what it cost me to operate so that I can have, a profitable business. And there were some jobs that I underestimated, that I misestimated, and I ended up not making money on or losing a few dollars on. But I learned my lesson quite quickly with that. But when I had my dojo, I was just like, I wouldn't talk about shirts. I wouldn't retail. Like if anyone said, "Hey, Sensei, how much is the parents' night out?" And I didn't even have them in the beginning because it was a sellout, right? Like no one does parents' night outs. Like at that time, I probably would have rolled over and thought my teachers rolled over in their grave and been like, "You're doing a Nerf wars like in the future?" Like I would never have thought of that. But I didn't analyze all of those things. And I have to be honest, Wayne, I think the biggest dilemma I've ever encountered as a coach is getting school owners to know their numbers, to get them to know. It's hard for them. I don't know why. It's really, for me, I'm not good at math. So math has to be very simple for me. My mom always used to say, if I wanted to figure numbers out, I would ask you the number, you'd get it wrong. And then I'd say, and put a dollar sign in front of all the numbers. And then I'd get it right. Right. She'd say, all I got to just add, Allie, just add a dollar sign and then you'll figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, I could do it because I had some reference to it. So anyway, long story short, school owners, they don't know what it costs them to live in their homes, like separate. Like, let's say you just figured out 2 items. What it costs you to live in your personal life. That means, your bills, your rent, your electric, your phone, your car payment, your insurance, heat, oil, electricity, and what that takes a month. Let's just pretend the number's 1,000. And then what does it take for your business to do the same thing? And let's say your amount is 2,000. Now there's a $3,000 total, and you have to make 3,000 plus to be able to survive in the world. I think that a lot of the school owners I deal with don't know those numbers and they can't figure them out. It's too difficult for them. And this is why they're always running like on the verge of being empty in their gas tank, like a little over empty, hoping that they're not going to run out because they have to get to the movie. So they're not going to stop for gas because they're running late. And then they run out of gas and they miss the movie.
Yeah. They're so busy in their activities,
right,
that some aren't even productive, getting them to the goals that they really want.
Right.
They're so busy in their activities that they don't take the time, or they don't see the importance in taking the time
Yeah.
to do that. Now, I know back in the day when I first started, we were doing, people would come in and they would pay us cash or give us a check. And then we went to, PPP with, preferred payment.
Yep. PPS.
Whatever. And then it moved to member solutions.
PPS or professional payment systems.
That's what it was.
And then it went to
PPP is the loan that I got. Okay.
Yeah.
So
member solutions, right? And then it was APS.
Okay.
Was those are the three that merged that we were involved with, you and I.
Yeah. So back in that time, it was, we would get our money on the 25th is when it would drop. Actually,
Right.
Probably by the 26th is when we would get it.
Yeah.
And then if it was a weekend, of course, it would roll over. But that being said, we only got paid once a month, but yet our bills kept coming in
Oh yeah.
throughout the month. And so you had to learn how to budget those things, which in the beginning, again, when I bought out my partners, I didn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
One of the easiest ways to help correct, you got to know your numbers, like you said, but help you with cash flow nowadays is because the way that our ability to be able to charge at any time, any place, anywhere, anyway.
Exactly.
This was one of the best things that we ever did was switch to weekly billing.
Right.
And so all of our clients are on weekly billing, excluding the older ones that were on a monthly thing. But by 5 years now, because this has already been 2 years that we've done weekly billing, but within 5 years, everybody in the studio will be on weekly billing unless they're doing a paid in full every single year.
Yeah.
And gosh, I wish that I would have known that and had the ability to be able to do that back then, because every week I would have had money coming in. I could pay my staff, I could pay the bills, didn't have to wait in order to do that. So one of the quickest ways to solve your cash flow problem, I shouldn't say solve it, to at least understand it a little bit better, is if you can switch to weekly billing, that's going to make a huge difference. Second to that is like what Allie talked about, is know your numbers and know where your money's going. Like Allie had talked about in our last podcast, and if you need to go back and listen to it, he talked about the spreadsheet that he puts all of his bills in and what's coming out, what's going in. On top of that, in that podcast, we talked about the percentages that you need to run in order to run a profitable martial arts school. You need to follow those percentages. So if you got to go back and listen to that, and you haven't listened to it at all, go back and listen to that podcast that we did. I think it was episode 377, I believe. So anything else on cash flow before we move to the next?
Yeah. The other thing too with cash flow, of course, is, and by the way, I helped with getting Member Solutions back in the day, the billing company, to break it up so that you could have a choice of when the billing would come out. The 1st, the 5th, the 20th, and the 25th, because it was hard trying to find enough. This was the old saying, to find enough month at the end of the money.
Yes.
Right. That was the saying. Like, what does that mean? Like, oh my God, like my money stopped coming in and I still have 5 bills to pay and I still got to make it through. I still got to buy groceries. So they weren't budgeting their cash flow. And then also, and knowing your costs is very important, because sometimes you can negotiate or eliminate. Like a lot of people, like, I'm going out of business. I don't have enough money. I'm like, well, what are the things that we could cut costs on while we're building the business? Where can we get rid of? Or like right now, we talked about this last week, is like I'm in the midst of getting my phone system. So it goes from this cable bundle that I have of like $220 a month down to what you had showed me. And I still haven't pulled the trigger, is to get the phone numbers on one line. Like you said, it's like $40 a year. All right. Or something like that. Or a month. 140 a year. I'm paying $240 a month for my stuff. And then I'm going to get my T-Mobile wireless in my building for $49. So now I'm going to go to down to like $60 a month from $240. Now, of course, I can afford it, but why? I always say I'd rather take that savings and spend it in restaurants or, with my family than to blow it on some big company business that they're ripping me off on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Just as an aside note, one of our neighbors in the building that I rent, they are looking to put um, cable. They want internet.
Okay.
And I talked to them about it, and I go, well, you can tap into ours. I mean,
Right.
and we can just, split the cost. So we ran a
Right.
wire from our unit all the way to theirs. It'll start next month. I'm gonna cut my internet cost in half. Nice thing is they're gonna use the internet during the day. We're not busy during the day, and by the time they're leaving, that's when our busy time happens. So we're not even gonna like utilize each other's bandwidth.
Right.
So
Yeah, isn't that amazing? So yeah, so that's the one thing. So that's C, the first letter in crap.
that's right. That's right. So the second letter is R, and R is retention. That is a problem. That's innate in our business. We're in a attrition business. We're
Right.
always losing customers, even the best schools.
Yep.
Really, if you can keep your attrition rate at 3% or under that, then you're doing phenomenal. Like,
Right.
that is expert level.
Yes.
And if you're not keeping track of that, again, we're going back to stats. If you're not keeping track of that, you're probably lying to yourself. So you really don't know where you're at.
And Chung Park from Spark and Parks Taekwondo, Master Park, GMP, they call him Grandmaster Park. I like that initial. They call him GMP. Hey, GMP, right? And but anyway, he did a great thing on retention, and I love the video, and I've shared it, I think, on our groups. But he said you have to understand that every single student you have in your school will eventually quit. He said it's inevitable.
That was just recent, wasn't it? Within the last 5 days or so? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He said, just like, some of them will last 2 years, some of them will last 2 months, some of them will last 10 years. He said, but they're eventually going to quit. And it's amazing. I was talking to one of my friends the other day about, he has my nephew's testing. He trains at my friend's school, my wife's nephew, and he's going for his 5th Dan. And I said to my friend, I go, how many 5th Dans have you promoted? He's been open for 45 years. He goes, I don't even know. So that got me thinking, like, how many black belts have I promoted over the course of 33 years? So I started with just my notepad, number one. And in my mind, I went back in the years to 92, 93, and I started writing numbers down of people, black belts, that I remembered their names. And then I asked 2 of my old students to help me with anyone that I forgot, and I gave them the list, and we're up to 165 black belts that I've promoted. That might not sound like a lot to some, but for many, that's pretty massive, right? 165 black belts. But here's the kicker, and the reason why I brought it up was
Well, before you say that, let me also just let everybody know it takes about 7 to 8 years to get a black belt in your school. So
6 to 7, some 8 to 10.
Okay. All right. So, but I wanted to lay that groundwork when you say those numbers, because for some people they might go, well, that's not that many in that time frame, but there's a longer period of time than most schools, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, though, that for me, like, I looked at all those people and I don't see them anymore. I don't hear from them anymore. Some of them are friends with me on Facebook. Every once in a while, I bump into somebody, or they'll come and visit me after 20 years, 10 years, 15 years have gone by. But I just look at that and I go like, wow, like, that's where we're always struggling with retention. We're always like, what can we do to become better? And of course, we want to be better at retaining our students. But if we know that our lifespan is a certain amount of time, let's just pretend the average the average lifespan in the martial arts in the industry has been figured out to be around between 20 and 24 months.
Now, I heard 10 months, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, well, that could be. So let's just say 10 to 24 months, right? If that's the case, then sometimes we're spinning, we're doing so much to keep people in the school, when no matter what you do, they're going to move on. Some people are great at retention and they keep people. And what Chung Park said, Master GMP said, it's about relationships. It's about building a culture where people want to be in your school and with you. Like, I have a black belt that's mad at me right now. And he had said to me, he goes like, maybe that's why you don't have a lot of black belts training. And I'm like, well, my friend is, I didn't say this to him, but my friend who's had been open for 45 years before he actually sold his school 4 or 5 years ago, he didn't have every black belt training. People get to black belt, they get to second, third, fourth degree, and then they quit. So it's just the natural progression of things. So we're in that. I think the mindset should be in that cycle of going like, okay, this will happen. Let me do everything I can to not let it happen. But at the same time, when it does happen, I'm not going to let it destroy me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I will say, with regards to retention, the other thing that the word black belt seems like the end. So when they get to first degree black belt, they already in their mind, unless your school, going back to what you talked about, unless the culture is different. But even so, even if you talk about and you make the culture in your school that black belt is just the beginning as opposed to the end, that's not culturally what everybody thinks about. Everybody thinks about the fact that black belt is the end. I've made my black belt, so now I can move to the next thing that I want to do. So, we don't have time to go through a bunch of different retention strategies, but we wanted to bring that to everybody's attention, that some of the crap that we deal with is not only just cash flow, but retention, because we are in an attrition business. And so we have to make sure that, we keep those numbers, those statistics,
right.
Create the culture, the relationships. In fact, we did do a podcast. I think it was this year that we talked about the fact that in order to retain people, that one of the things that you have to do is you have to build that community,
right?
Because people are starving for those relationships, and not to the point where it's FOMO, like if they're not there, that they're like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out. But a little bit of the FOMO has to be there, not in a disingenuous way, but it has to be in a way that, wow, I missed out on that. And I'll give you for instance, 2 of my best friends, they were football players in high school. And I was just a swimmer. And so when it was football season, they spent a lot more time with each other. Of course, every Friday and Saturday I was with them, but it wasn't until Friday night after the football game that I would get to spend with them, and then Saturday. And there were so many inside jokes. There were so many things that they had, experiences that they had together that I could never experience because I wasn't on the football field with them. And they were both linemen. So not only were they on the same team in the same school, but they're both on the same line. One on the left, one on the right. And so their experiences were together the whole time. And so I had that FOMO. Man, my 2 best friends are closer to each other than they are to me. And it wasn't because anything that they did, it's just was naturally happening. So we've got to create that culture in our school that our students are like, man, I need to be there. Not in a bad way that I'm going to miss out, but I don't want to miss out.
Well, what you just said just immediately triggered me in a good way, right? Like I try to explain this to my.
I was going to ask if you needed a safe space.
Yeah, exactly. I need a crayon, and I got to go to the corner and be able to color for a little bit of time. So immediately that made me think of a conversation I had with a parent just last night, where they said, "Hey, please take me off your text message list. I get way too many texts, and blah blah blah, and I need a break from your texts." And I said, it's really very simple. All you have to do is hit delete. Like, it doesn't take much to go, oh, delete. You don't even have to read them, right? But the minute you're taken out of that text thread, now I'm not texting you with anything. And she said, don't worry. I look at everything. I'm up to date on everything that's going on. And I'm like, but you won't be like if we're closed because of the snow, or you won't be if we have a holiday. But anyway, this is what they want because they're too inundated. But what you made me think of was this. If a parent is not getting their kids involved, they're missing out on all those inner, like your 2 friends that were linemen, that experience they get together, that camaraderie, they're missing out. So they're only getting this very sub-level portion of training at our school when they're not involved. They're only halfway because they're so busy with so many things. It'd be better not to be busy with so many things and be able to be running the plays with these linemen, because it would give them such a much more fulfilled life. And I think that a lot of parents are too busy giving their kids experience and not giving them enough experience.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
And that's why retention is bad too.
Well, yeah, and everybody wants their kids to be a jack of all trades but master of none, and that's where our we got to do our due diligence to make sure that they see that we paint the picture, and not in a 3 months they're going to test for this belt, 3 months they're going to test for this belt, and within 24 months they're going to be X belt, and
right.
Those are facts, and people aren't moved with facts, they're moved on emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to be able to paint that picture for them on the experiences. And then not only that for their kids, we also have to paint the picture of experiences for the parent.
Right.
So, when Jack achieves his black belt and has all of these things, when you have, painted this picture for them, how does that make you feel? What does that do for you as a parent?
Right.
And then, utilize, I hate to use a good salesman, a good motivator uses stories and emotion
right
to help move the individual into a space that they know that individual wants to go and needs to go.
Yeah.
And they'll use facts to back up that emotion,
right?
But they don't run with the facts.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Totally does. And it goes back to my thoughts. Like, I remember, like, I stayed with my teacher for as long as I did in America, and then the one in Japan, because I was involved and I had brothers in arms that I trained with, and training partners that we traveled the world together. We went to tournaments together. We experienced this unquestionable bond that made my martial arts important. And why I enjoyed it so much was not so much the learning of the martial arts. It was all the other things that wrapped around it. And that's where I think a lot of parents are missing out on that, because their kids are so busy. Like, I had a mom, she just yesterday talked to me about Black Belt Club. They're in our Black Belt Club, and she wants to downgrade because her kid can only come a few times a year. Yep. And I said, but why doesn't he come more? Well, we're busy on those days. I go, it's the last Monday of every month. You can't schedule like 6 or 8 of them for the whole year, and they don't get it. They just, there's nothing that you could say to them that they're going to listen to, because they don't take your advice. And it's a shame, but we definitely have to move on, because we have a shorter call today, right? So let's talk about A.
Yeah. So again, crap. C is cash flow. R is retention. A is actually administration. So none of us got into the martial arts so that we could work on the scheduling and the billing and the paperwork and all those other things. We really got into the martial arts to focus on teaching and making an impact into our school. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%.
But in order to run a successful business and to be able to make an impact on the students and the parents that you want to make an impact, you have to become a good administrator in what you do. And so blocking out time, delegating different tasks, whatever it is, so that you can focus on what brings you in the money and puts, actually, for me, actually makes me more happy, which is that interaction with the students and those type of things. We can't underestimate the ability to be a good administrator of our business, because it will have a direct impact on the bottom line, but also it will have a direct impact on the influence that we are able to make, to our students and our parents.
Right. Absolutely. And the more professional you are with knowing how to run your school, the better service that someone's going to get.
Yeah. And then identifying, like for me, how I think of it, administration, identifying what my strengths are and where I'm good at, and what my deficits are and what I'm not good at, And then basically finding, I'm going back to that book that I gave you that sounded like Dr. Seuss that you told me,
Which one?
Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How.
Oh yeah.
Finding the right who's to get the job done, because it doesn't always have to be me. So there was quite a long time, just as an easy one, quite a long time, I was doing my own book work, being a bookkeeper. I hate it. I hate it. I'm not good at it. It is very important that it gets done,
Yeah.
but it is very hard for me to do it because I absolutely hate it.
Right.
So I guess you shouldn't hate something, but I hate it. And
Yeah.
so I found a bookkeeper.
Mhm.
She's not even in my town. She is actually in Indianapolis, around the Indianapolis area. But because of technology, she's able to get into my QuickBooks and, balance my checkbook, and do all those things and send me the reports that I need on a weekly and monthly basis. And then if there's another report that I need, all I do is I have a meeting with her and say, hey, you know what? Can we start doing this report? She sets it up in QuickBook. It actually, once she sets it up, it automatically gets sent to me. Like I don't have to fart around with it. So I have an accountant. I have a bookkeeper. We have, if I was there, I would do it if I had to. But I don't clean the studio. I have staff that cleans the studio. When there's painting that needs to be done, we have a painter come in and do the painting. When the carpet cleaning needs to be done, we have carpet. So there are, not that I haven't gone in and cleaned carpets before.
Yeah.
But understanding what my strengths are and then what my weaknesses are, and finding those holes and then filling, having people fill those holes, because I don't have to do everything. I used to think I had to do everything because I was important and I had to. Nah, I'm not important. If I die, Mr. Bean's going to run this business.
Yeah.
And he will be just as successful as I am for as long as he wants to be. There'll be parts of the business that he doesn't know that he'll just have to learn. But now that we've implemented standard operating procedures, and I don't know if you saw that in Spark, you can actually start doing standard operating procedures in there. We've already built ours inside of Notion, so I'm not going to switch it over. But just doing those things. And so, like, for instance, today I shot a video on a procedure that's changed. I sent that video over. It's hosted in our Dropbox account. I sent the video over to Mr. Bean via Slack, and I just gave him some parameters and said, hey, can you put this where it needs to go? Make sure the program directors watch it. Boom. And it took me, 3 minutes to shoot the video that I wanted to do, and then he's going to do the other work.
Right.
And so make sure that you do delegate the things that you need to delegate in that administration part. Don't abdicate, meaning don't give it to somebody without the parameters that you want to have happen. Don't just let them do things on the way that they want to do them.
Right. Okay, I love it.
Anything else on administration?
I could go over a few things, but really nothing that you hadn't covered. So we have to end the call a little early today. Yep. So the last one is P. Yeah.
People, right? We're in a people business. And that means that we've got to deal with people. So we got to handle difficult situations, involving our customers, any negative reviews, challenging clients. We got to do that with professionalism, and we also have to do that with grace. And sometimes that's very difficult. I'm not saying that the customer is always right, but in their mind, the customer is always right. So if we can find a win-win-win situation, then we should do that.
Yeah. And by the way, I think that I'll give you an example. My wife had gotten a text message when we were in Florida from one of her best friends. And she's like, oh, wow, this is really not sitting well with me. Like, I don't know what's wrong. It sounds like she doesn't like me anymore, whatever the case may have been. And I said, you can never make a determination off of a text message. You should ask her and see why, because certain times people are just quick. They're hurried, harried. They're trying to get things done, and they text you and they maybe miss a word, and it could change the entire sentence structure and so on. So I read a book that I really loved, and it was called Difficult Conversations, and it was by Douglas Stone. I'll put the link in our I'll put it on our Facebook page.
Sure.
And but difficult situations, and it's by, like I said, Douglas Stone and Bruce Patton. They're two of them, and I learned a lot of techniques about having those difficult conversations. The one that you think are going to be troublesome, the ones that you think are going to go the wrong way. But if you learn how to converse with the people that are mad, angry, like I had with the restaurant that I was upset with in Florida, the owner's wife emailed me back, and I was like, wow, like I can't believe that. And they're a chain. They have like, 8 or 9. And the owner's wife emailed me back and said, hey, I'm really sorry. I fixed it. I talked to them. Like, so you just never know when you're going to get, it might feel like it's going to be a bad conversation or feel like it's going to turn out the wrong way, but it could inevitably strengthen your relationship. It could make it better than it was before, because if you leave it lying and sitting, it could deteriorate. But if you have a conversation, it could get better.
And I think the important thing is when you read those types of books, that one specifically, and then there's one called Crucial Conversations.
Yeah, I think that's another one that I read, Crucial Conversations too. That was a great one.
Yeah. So by reading
that
those
was by
books,
Gary Peterson, by the way.
Perfect. Thank you. I think it's important to create a framework that you work off of every time that you enter in those negative situations, or where you think that it's going to be potentially a negative situation. And then that way you're not basing your conversation on emotion for yourself. You're walking in with that framework, and the different questions that you're going to ask to get the responses that you need in order to be able to solve that problem.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Totally. Without a doubt. Makes perfect sense.
And without that framework, I mean, I know for years that I didn't have a framework. And so without that framework, moving into those conversations, they were very scary. They were very uneasy for me. And the funny thing is, I remember the first person I had to kick out of the studio, and I've said this on our podcast before. I didn't know I created a framework when I did that, but this was my framework. Was I was just going to keep repeating the phrase that I had decided to say until they left the building. And all I said was, I pulled the lady in the office and I said, I just want you to know, Mrs. So-and-so, that we can no longer service you or your family. And she looks at me. She goes, what? I go, we can no longer service you or your family. And she goes, are you kicking us out? I go, we can no longer service you or your family. Yeah. And she looked at me and I think it was a 4th time. And I said, we can no longer service you or your family. And then she picked up and walked out of there. But I knew that there was no argument there, because they were done, but I wasn't bold enough to say, look, I'm kicking you out, and here are the reasons. I don't care what your response is. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Even though I wanted to say that, I couldn't say it. So
and I love that you didn't, because if you would have said, and these are the reasons why, then they would have rebutted. So like, we're selling one of our rental properties, and we had a tenant that just moved out. And we said to them, oh, there's a little bit of damage here and there, so we're going to take some money off the security. Right away, they were like, oh, but when we moved in, there was this, and that. Like, there's always that rebuttal, that always fight. So, so I said, you know what, let's just give them, it was only $100 we wanted. I said, let's just give them the $100 and walk away. But you're right. Like, by not saying why, explaining why, you were able to get away with not having to fight, not having the argument, and let them go.
Yes. Yeah.
That was awesome.
So hopefully this has helped some school owners that we're all dealing with our crap. We're all dealing with cash flow, retention, administration, and then also people problems as well. And those are just, I mean, they're not all negative things, but they are positive things as well. And we went more, I think, neutral and negative today. But I hope our school owners take a look at some of the past podcasts that we've done, actually covering some of the crap that we talked about. But per year request, we wanted to do a podcast about the crap.
Yeah, exactly. And I love it. It turned out to be incredible. And I hope it becomes a acronym for the industry, so that they understand that crap is not necessarily crap. It's important stuff.
It is. Well, thank you, sir.
All right, dude, you have a great day. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. And, just keep pushing ahead.
All right. Bye, sir.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Martial Arts School Owner Talk podcast. This would not be possible if it weren't for the support of our amazing sponsors. Please check out Elite Insights for all your website needs. They can be reached at eliteinsights.com. Add Health Coaching, helping school owners create a new and easy to implement revenue stream for your school. Visit addhealthcoaching.com. Lead Hunter Media, your online digital marketer and content provider. Visit leadhuntermedia.com. Academy Kings Growth Consulting and Management Group. They can be reached at academykings.com. And Spark Membership, hands down the best martial arts software for school owner management on the planet. They can be reached at sparkmembership.com. We will see you next time.